Einen wunderschönen guten Morgen Ihnen allen hier bei uns im großen Festsaal, in unserem wunderschönen Rathaus, and also a very warm welcome to all the people following this ceremony on the screens.
Welcome to all of those who are following this in the stream. Welcome to our international guests in Hamburg. Professor Stephanie Wehner, our prize winner, Dr. Paulsen, Professor Kramer, Professor Enslin, members of the Hamburg Parliament, that is the state parliament. Now, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, and it is a tremendous pleasure to welcome all of you today. First and foremost, our prize winner, our laureate here in this beautiful celebratory hall of our City Hall for the award of the Körber European Science Prize. It's part of our scientific agenda, also part of the city's agenda. And it has been for 40 years now. It has honored the breakthroughs in physical sciences or life sciences in Europe. It is one of the most renowned and highestly awarded research prizes worldwide, and it's a highlight I've been looking forward to for days now. And yesterday we had the second Hamburg Science Summit, and I believe some of you already participated in that. We talked about it. Professor Kramer and Dr. Paulsen and myself, we discussed that this is something that is a special signal, a signal that Hamburg is heading out into the world, into Europe, that this is where you meet, because science and innovation are safeguarded here and at the same time safeguarding the scientific future of Europe. Now, what could be more topical nowadays than the idea of Kurt and Körber, something that was really visionary, which came up in the 1980s. At the time, just remember here, to achieve a breakthrough through the Iron Curtain, because he realized early on that there's so much power involved in science. If politicians no longer have answers, and then it's up to scientists, individual scientists, who present their ideas, bring them together, building bridges. And this has led to this prize, which brings Europe together. So everyone on an individual basis, but also via science, we work for Europe, a unified Europe, via excellent research, excellent science for our societies. So basic research at its best, together with achieving a breakthrough or having already achieved this breakthrough. And now, looking back at the past 40 years and looking at what kind of world we live in here, full of geopolitical tension, and we feel on a daily basis that democracies that we had considered secure are now being questioned and doubted. And then we realize that this is a very topical idea and that this prize faces up to these challenges and attacks, that disciplines are being questioned, that funding is being retracted, so that the freedom of science at many places, I'm not just talking about places overseas, but also here in Europe, in some places it's no longer possible because scientists are being threatened. And realizing all this, then that gives the Körber Prize even more importance, also for me, because it faces up to these challenges, these developments. It's proud to say we can only be successful, we can only have a positive development living together in peace and freedom if we do this together on a European level. And the path towards this is paved by our scientists, our research institutes, but also the individuals who take up an idea based on curiosity, this drive to do research, and they develop things further. And that is so impressive. And I hope that today also sends out the signal to the world. This idea of the prize of the founder is appreciated more than in the past. And at the same time, looking towards you, Professor Wehner, it's really, you are an unbelievably impressive personality, and you and also the previous prize winners are such impressive personalities, really deeply affected by this and drawn towards research, and getting the impression myself here to be very close to these exciting research stories and feeling the motivation behind this, and then the personality that marks our prize winners. So, as I said, I'm deeply impressed, and I can say announcing this prize, I mean, that happened the past 24, 48 days. Many articles were published, and just last night, as I said, I saw this on the evening news. It was a fascinating report about your work here announcing this award ceremony today. And if you look, if I look into your eyes and when you talk about your work, I mean, you just shine, you glow, and that gives me hope and optimism vis-à-vis the future. So this idea of this prize and the really impressive personalities who have won this prize, and you are, of course, one of them, Professor Wehner. You were born in Würzburg, you studied computer science in Amsterdam, and at the Center of Wiskunde, you got your PhD in computer science, and you also worked as an ethical hacker while you were a student, testing computer systems for weaknesses in order to protect them better. And as a postdoc, you went to Caltech here, California Institute of Technology. And since 2016, you've been Antonie van Leeuwen Professor at the QTech Institute at the Technical University of Delft in the Netherlands. And since 2017, you were the head, the European Quantum Internet Alliance that you are co-founder of. And this you're driving forward the European Quantum Internet. You're elected member of the Royal Academy of Sciences in the Netherlands, co-founder of the largest conference for quantum cryptography in the world, and also a member of the Quantum Network Delft. And today's award, I mean, it's something, it's really a leadership role here, because this is happening in the year of quantum research on the 100th anniversary of quantum mechanics. And this honors your idea of a quantum internet, an ultra-fast and secure computer network which allows new applications and computing power and performance. Your quantum internet pioneer and your most recent development is the first operating system for quantum computer networks. And in the future, now data can be transmitted, tap-proof, and record-time networking of users who can then solve solutions way beyond the limits of today's internet. So far, quantum applications had to be programmed by specialists only, and you will probably explain this much better in a moment. And for each hardware individually without any networking possibilities. And the situation is similar to what we saw in the early days of classical computing, when these computers were not networked by the internet and only experts could use them. You, Professor Wehner, you are changing this idea of an operating system. Your operating system is changing this fundamentally. Now quantum programs can run on different devices and communicate with each other. They are networked without any quantum physical specialist knowledge. So we are looking forward what else is in store. And I'm sure that your groundbreaking work on the quantum internet will find lots of interest also here in Hamburg. And we were able to talk before this event. It's your first time in Hamburg. Hard to believe, really. And so I would like to invite you to come back, because Hamburg is now has embarked on a path not to become a pulsating, excellent science metropolis with a very strong ecosystem, excellent research, our universities and other research institutes, and then networking with the ecosystems, the startup scene, with great funding and transfer structures. And in addition to that, we've embarked here on the path, and we are very proud of this, that we are among the very few German hotspots. So we are on the path towards quantum computing and quantum technologies, and making this a focus area, because we've believed for a long time these are key technologies leading to economic sovereignty, economic competitiveness, and that it has strategic importance as well. And so we've gotten on track here in close cooperation and networks, not just with universities, but companies as well. We have lighthouse projects like the Hamburg Quantum Computing Project or the Hamburg Quantum Innovation Capital Initiative. And especially I'd like to focus on, before I close this commercial break, highlighting Hamburg. And hopefully we come back to Hamburg and take up some of our cooperation ideas with the Science City Hamburg-Bahrenfeld, which already has a very esteemed reputation way beyond Hamburg, where we have excellent research that is will be networking more in the next 10, 15 years together with the development of this city. And I mean, we apply to host the Olympics in 2040, so Hamburg is putting its foot forward. And May of next year, we'll have a referendum on this here. Then the Olympic Village will be there in the Science City, and then following that, we will have a wonderful area where thousands of scientists will hopefully make this Science City their new home, and where we already have thousands every year to work on research and the most recent developments, the new breakthroughs. Well, so much for my advertising commercial here on Hamburg. Back to you. I think you received my invitation. Today you will be awarded one of the highest endowed science prizes in the world. So the prize and the money is a recognition of your scientific work, your hard work for science in Europe, and this money is supposed to support your successful research to develop new applications for quantum networks, which might become a reality within the next 5 to 10 years and can be used by scientists and in business. And you said, in addition to that, together with your partners in the European Quantum Internet Alliance, until 2030, you would like to link up to European metropolis with a long-distance quantum link and network. So this makes Europe leading not just in science, but also when building up the usable quantum internet, at the same time offering new digital business models and opportunities for startups. So this is really fascinating, so really impressive, and I'm sure we will hear much more from you going forward. You know, some of your predecessors were first here in Hamburg. A few years later, they won the Nobel Prize. So I don't want to put any pressure on you here, raising the bar. But your work does not just deserve the Körber Prize. And I know that the Körber people don't like this comparison. I mean, each prize stands for itself. But still, I mean, we can imagine still, you know. And Professor Stephanie Wehner came to Hamburg, and she received the Körber European Science Prize awarded by the Körber Foundation. It's a wonderful event. And congratulations on behalf of the Hamburg government here on the Körber European Science Prize 2025. And I wish you all the best, lots of success and stamina, energy, curiosity, and everything that you need to make headway in science in these crazy times. Stay the course, and I wish you lots of freedom. First and foremost, freedom to do what you want to do and what you love to do. All the best for you.
Esteemed Mayor, Ms. Fegebank, State Councillor, Ms. Gümbel, esteemed members of Parliament, esteemed Professor Wehner, and esteemed members of the Körber Prize Committee, ladies and gentlemen, I too would like to extend a warm welcome to the award ceremony for the Körber European Science Prize 2025. It's great that you all accepted our invitation. Our musicians today are Gabriel Husson on the grand piano and Leonard Toschew on the violin. Both are prize winners and scholarship holders of the German Foundation for Musical Life, which we at the Körber Foundation have long been friends with. We will be able to hear them again at the end of the event. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to try something in the next few minutes that is not always easy for me in view of the world situation, but which I consider to be more important than almost anything else: spreading confidence. Confidence in the face of multiple challenges, or rather, in the face of massive threats. Spreading confidence is almost a bit of a provocation in these times, because confidence is not really on a roll. On the contrary, we can observe a veritable competition to outdo each other in political doomsaying, which not only sees the end of the West, or at least Europe, approaching, but actually already here. Economically on the decline, in terms of foreign policy on the road to insignificance, militarily incapable or highly dependent, demographically in free fall, ecologically resistant to change, intellectually exhausted, morally questionable to ruined, metaphysically homeless. Anyone who would like to see all this in one way or another would probably be well advised to get themselves one last pen to sign their world historical deed of surrender. For my part, I would like to take a different approach for the time being and take an example from an event that fortunately left little room for alarmism and fatalism. Yesterday, 200 experts discussed how science and innovation should develop in Europe in the future as part of the second Hamburg Science Summit. Ms. Fegeban, it is the second one. Last year we started with that. Now, we as a foundation are organizing this together with the city of Hamburg, and the growing number of partner institutions for this event alone gives me confidence. At first glance, the subject matter may seem a little dry, but far from it. With this discussion, we find ourselves at the center of what one person who is no stranger to this podium has described with the big word Zeitenwende, or turning point in history, a term that we are only gradually learning to understand in its entirety. For although we always present ourselves as being ready for change, in emergency we tend to prefer to remain comfortably in place, especially when it concerns us. It is best for others to change, please. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, those who speak of confidence must not remain silent about the challenges they face, because the opposite of doom and gloom is not rose-tinted glasses, but the richest possible palette of shades of grey. Let me briefly highlight 3 aspects and explain why the answer in each case is Europe. For a long time, research and innovation policy was regarded as one of many fields, more a subject for experts and of only minor strategic importance. This is changing rapidly. President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, made it very clear that research and innovation, science and technology must be placed at the heart of the European economy. And Manuel Heitor, chairman of the European Commission's high-level expert group for the evaluation of the European Research Programme, and Portugal's long-standing science minister, who is also here today, called for nothing less than disruption for research and innovation in Europe in his keynote speech at the Hamburg Science Summit yesterday. Europe is learning, and I'm confident about that research and development will shape its future. And it is already ready to take action. The Commission has proposed almost doubling the upcoming research framework program to 175 billion euros. This is a clear response to a changing geopolitical landscape. Europe is waking up. High time, one might say, because science is once again a power factor in the new political systemic rivalries, be it the Chinese attempt to gain dominance in all decisive fields and to place science primarily at the service of national superiority, or be it the current administration's ideologically driven reorganization of the US science system. Science as a medium of cross-system understanding, an idea that Kurt Körber also had in mind when he founded the prize, is increasingly becoming the pawn in the hands of non-scientific power political interests. Europe can and must be a refuge here, a place, a refuge, in which the idea of free science and research oriented towards the common good is still at the core of common identity. So let us keep that treasure. And because isolation is on the rise everywhere, Europe has no choice but to take its fate into its own hands and become technologically sovereign. In the future, this will depend on clever and sensitive management of corporations that reconciles the highest possible degree of freedom with safeguarding our security interests. And this raises a second question, namely the relationship between security and innovation. My guess is that here, too, the real dimension of the Zeitenwende, the turning point, has not yet reached us all. The supposed absence of serious military threats for decades has led to research at universities being geared exclusively towards civilian purposes. More than 70 universities have adopted so-called civilian clauses. However, it is now also clear that the new threat situation brings with it a need for research. If security technology innovations are no longer made available to us by third parties as a matter of course, we will also have to become more independent in this area in future. Research and innovation are crucial for defense and security, as again Manuel Heitor said. This insight will require many of us to revisit cherished convictions. It is probably no exaggeration to say that the relationship between the scientific community on the one hand and the military and defense industry on the other is, for the most part, a non-relationship in this country. In the USA, by the way, there has always been the realization that the reverse thesis is also true. Defense and security are crucial for research and innovation. There, the entire system is designed to ensure that dual-use effects are not just coincidences, but that they are systematically brought about. I therefore advocate following our founders' motto in this field and talking more with each other than about each other in future. Perhaps this will lead us to a new understanding of the matter, and we can get used to the idea of discussing the security issue much more broadly and also in a civilian context. Then innovation would hopefully not only lead to more security, but conversely, security issues would also contribute to more innovation. It is obvious that we would be well advised to do this from a European perspective right from the start. At least, and this also gives me confidence, the open dialogue has begun. For example, at an initial roundtable on the topic this morning at the Chamber of Commerce here in Hamburg. My third point brings me to the actual reason for today and is the most obvious and optimistic reason for my confidence today, and not only today. I've just spoken about technological sovereignty. If there is one field in which competitors such as China and the USA are investing massively and with great dynamism, it is key technologies such as artificial intelligence and quantum technologies. And that is why the research field of this year's award winner plays a very special role. It not only determines who has the technological edge in the increasingly important field of quantum physics. Due to the vital importance of these technologies for the encryption of information, it also fundamentally affects the security and resilience of our societies. Quantum computing will ultimately be decisive in determining who will be able to continue to communicate securely without being eavesdropped on, who will be able to protect their data from unauthorized access, and who, conversely, will be readable by others like an open book. It is therefore not for no reason that quantum technology is one of the European Union's flagship projects. Stephanie Wehner's pioneering work on the quantum internet, an ultra-fast and extremely secure computer network, should enable tap-proof data transmission and the networking of users in record time in order to jointly solve problems that go far beyond the limits of today's internet. Stephanie Wehner is professor at the QTech Institute at Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands and also the director of the European Quantum Internet Alliance, and is working on creating the first operational quantum network in a European consortium. This would have particularly impressed our founder Kurt Körber, because this project breathes exactly the European spirit that he wanted to promote with his prize. It almost seems to me as if you, Ms. Wehner, had heard Kurt Körber's legacy when he said, "Europeans will not achieve much by doing it alone. That is another reason why Europe is a necessity." Ladies and gentlemen, all of this shows that we in Europe certainly have these creative and brilliant minds who make an impression in the global competition for the best ideas. And therefore, we are extremely pleased and very grateful that we are able to honor such a mind today with the Körber Prize. Not just a mind, no, a person, a brilliant researcher and a convinced European. Esteemed Stephanie Wehner, you not only have our admiration for your scientific achievements, but also our respect for your commitment. On behalf of the entire foundation and our committees, our heartfelt congratulations on winning the Körber European Science Prize 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you are not tired of all the confidence in my speech, because once again, I would like to express my confidence in the speech. Justifiably confident, because in fact, our brilliant moderator, Helen Schersky, and above all, of course, our prize winner herself, will bring you a whole lot closer to the miracles of the quantum world, which can hardly be understood by the everyday mind. I'm therefore very much looking forward to the discussion about such fascinating things as superposition, entanglement, and quantum tunnels. Before that, however, I would like to express my thanks. Firstly, I would like to thank our committees for this wonderful choice of prize winner, the Search Committee and the Trustee Committee, who have once again ensured a high caliber and innovative decision. Thank you so much. And I would like to thank you, esteemed Mayor Ms. Fegebank, and you, esteemed State Councillor Ms. Gümbel, for once again welcoming our prize winner so warmly to Hamburg and for granting us your hospitality in this wonderful hall in the City Hall. Thank you so much. This is not just an important signal for the appreciation of the prize, but also a sign that the strategic importance of science and research has long been recognized in our beautiful city. That too, ladies and gentlemen, gives me confidence. Finally, I would like to thank all of you for coming here to be inspired once again by what excellent research can achieve. And that is why I am now very happy to hand over to Helen Czerski. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Well, I am so excited to be here for the ceremony for another year. It is always such a highlight of the year in this beautiful hall, as we've heard. It's my job to guide you through the rest of the ceremony this morning, and I can promise you that what we have ahead of us is full of ideas, of enthusiasm for science, as you've heard, enthusiasm especially for European science. And I hope that you're going to leave here with, yes, confidence and optimism, but also with a real appreciation of the fantastic things that humans can achieve. You know, science is a huge collective endeavor. It's been constructed, our scientific knowledge has been constructed by thousands of humans working for many, many decades. And I think it is humanity's greatest collective achievement. But some people make particularly important steps forward. They drive progress in that collective achievement. And of course, we're here to celebrate one of those people today. The event from now on will be held mostly in English. There are headphones available at the back if you would like simultaneous translation into German. Now, of course, now it's time to get to the science. We've had the politics, we've had the enthusiasm, we've had the importance of Hamburg. Now let's get to the science. And before we meet Stefanie Wehner, let's begin with a video about her research at QTech at the Delft University of Technology. Stefanie Wehner is an IT specialist and a quantum physicist. On her way to work, she carries something that has the potential to change the world. In her bag is a small tool she developed together with her team at the Technical University of Delft. This tool will advance something she cares very much about. To me, communication is key. It's so fascinating in all its forms technologically. Not just A messaging B, but also communication among several computers in a network. That's where an unassuming little box comes into play. It could be the key to unlocking a possible quantum internet. An ultra-fast and extremely secure computer network, new communication technology that Stefanie Wehner is at the forefront of developing. To me, the most fascinating aspect is that we send a new kind of information, quantum information, and that will enable us to do things that are impossible on the regular internet. On the regular internet, we watch films, like this one, exchange data and transfer things into a digital world, which we used to do laboriously by hand, a transformation that has advantages and disadvantages. In fractions of a second, our messages travel the entire planet. Often these are intimate messages, meant for only one specific recipient, but potentially many copies of that message remain trapped somewhere on the internet. A quantum internet could solve such problems. One example is that a recipient could prove that they actually deleted information. Let's say someone sent me their medical information and they want to make sure that I deleted it after use. With quantum information, that is possible. Turning quanta into reliable carriers of information is the difficult and complex path Stefanie Wehner and her team are facing. At Europe's Quantum Internet Alliance, she leads researchers in making the phenomenon of quantum entanglement usable. quanta are correlated or entangled in such a way that knowing the state of one automatically gives you all the information on the other. This entanglement is indivisible. When I have a particle and you have another, and the two are entangled, this entanglement forms a kind of private connection, and nothing else in the universe can be part of that. So outside influences are properly excluded. And that leads to secure communication, using this secret connection that the entanglement provides. That may sound hypothetical, but only a few kilometers from the Technical University of Delft, it's already happening in the real world. In the port of Rotterdam, quantum communication is being used to coordinate shipping traffic, making eavesdropping impossible. As of now, this only works across short distances. On the regular internet, the binary code made up of ones and zeros can be copied time and time again, and thus be passed along. The bits on the quantum internet can't be copied, which makes it hard to span large distances. That's why Stefanie Wehner and her team at the Quantum Alliance are developing technologies that will allow quantum communication over greater distances. But those ephemeral qubits don't like to stick around. Right now, it's really tricky to save these qubits for any amount of time longer than a few seconds. But Stefanie Wehner and her team already managed to overcome a different challenge for a future quantum internet with this revolutionary gadget that fits into a purse. They developed an operating system called QNode OS, which makes it possible to develop and run applications on the quantum internet without the need for special training in quantum physics. The contents of that small grey box have the potential to turn the quantum computers of researchers into a quantum internet, an outstanding milestone in communication technology. The next step towards a working quantum internet is to make these systems usable outside our laboratories, in the real world. A groundbreaking next step that Stefanie Wehner is in the process of setting up. And I would now like to welcome our prize winner, Stefanie Wehner, to the stage. Thank you very much. Now, Stefanie, we've heard lots about your achievements as an adult, but I'd like to start with who you were as a child, because you and I are a similar age, and we grew up when computers were just starting to appear in homes, and I mean, we really are the first generation that grew up with this. So I'm curious about you as a child. Were you always playing with computers, or did that come later?
Yeah, I think I've always enjoyed playing with computers. But to be honest, what fascinates me already then even more is that computers can actually talk to each other at a distance. So for me, I think communication was always central to the picture. Yeah.
That's big thinking back then. What's your attitude to challenge and difficult tasks? Because back then, if you're thinking about computers communicating, I mean, it must have seemed impossible almost. What's your attitude when a big task or a big challenge comes your way? Yeah. How do you approach it?
I think maybe it's good to say that I enjoy challenges, but I'm not someone who enjoys puzzles because they're an interesting puzzle. I'm a very objective-driven person. And in order to get there, in order to find something out, it may be that indeed then I solve hard tasks to get there, right?
But you can see the end goal. That's what you're focused on. You see the picture.
I mean, to be honest, I think even if I think it's a process, right? If you see an end goal, I think sometimes also along the way you understand the end goal better, right?
Yeah.
I think that's actually even a necessary part of that process, and that also allows you then to get there as time progresses. Yeah.
And before we get on to what a quantum network or a quantum internet might be, did anyone ever tell you this is impossible? That this is just such a crazy idea that it will never work? Or did you think...
Yeah, some people ask that, right? Like, because it's also very difficult to imagine how that might work at all, right? So like, just also because it's quite different. It's different in two ways. Like, so the information that is being transmitted, quantum information, is not something that we experience in our daily life. So the information that we perceive is that you're sitting on this side of the stage, or maybe you're sitting on the other side of the stage, but you're not simultaneously sitting on both sides. So the quantum information we don't see. And that makes it, on the one hand, very abstract to understand how this might work at all. The other aspect is that quantum information also has properties that actually are very good on one hand, because they are responsible for example, giving you these ensuring security. But on the other hand, they also mean that transmitting such information works fundamentally differently than transmitting, say, standard or classical information from A to B.
Well, let's get to just a little bit of the very basic physics. As we heard, it's the 100th anniversary of, some would say, of quantum physics. But this word entanglement keeps coming up. And so just explain to us, so everybody's clear, what does it mean, quantum entanglement?
Yes. Quantum entanglement is a special property that two quantum particles, or two pieces of quantum information, can share. And they can share this entanglement even if they're far apart. And I think entanglement is best described by actually its two properties. One of them being that entanglement is fundamentally unshareable. If I have part of the entanglement and you have the other part of the entanglement, then it's not possible for anybody else to have any share of that entanglement. So this makes entanglement an inbuilt private connection that one can use to solve security-related problems. There's also another cool feature of entanglement, actually, which is that entanglement allows us to coordinate better. So if I measure my entanglement, and you can think of measuring entanglement as asking a question. For example, are you red or green, or is it pointing left or right? And if we ask the same question, even though the answer is not determined ahead of time, we will always get the same answer, no matter how far apart we are. And this feature of coordination is responsible for allowing entanglement to be used for problems where coordination is important, like synchronizing clocks, for example, coordinating where requests for videos are sent, and these kind of problems. And
this was a very controversial idea. You know, Albert Einstein, I think, called it spooky action at a distance. You know, he didn't like it. It was very hard that this could be physically possible was a very hard concept for humans to accept. And yet we can use it. That's the amazing thing, right? This thing that is so far from our own world, you are developing tools that will help us use it. Does that make you feel like a magician? Or is it just all the physics for you?
I don't feel like a magician, no. But I think it's true. Like, I guess you know the famous statement by Isaac Asimov, the science fiction writer, right?
Yeah.
That any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yes.
So it can sure look like that.
Yeah. So we celebrate you for both being a scientist and for being a magician. Okay, so there's an important point at the core of this discussion, and I know you're keen to make this clear, that we hear a lot about quantum computing, but you're talking about quantum networks, and those are two different things. Explain to me how they are different.
Yeah, they're related, but they're not exactly the same thing. So in the way that one does not need a quantum computer in order to do something useful with a quantum network. In order to have a useful quantum computer, you need very, very many of these quantum bits. So many that you can, be faster than a classical supercomputer. On a network, you only need, say, quantum computers or mini quantum devices that can manipulate only one of these qubits at a time. And that comes from the fact that the power of quantum networks comes from entanglement that cannot be replicated using any classical communication, and it can already exist with one quantum bit at a time. So I think quantum networks can be described, or the challenges going forward, in two directions. One of them is distance, meaning how far can the users actually be apart. But the other one is functionality, so what can we actually do with this network? And of course, in a further away future, you could also connect quantum computers to such a quantum network to do things that are much more advanced than secure communication. But I want to emphasize that it's not necessary to have a large-scale quantum computer to do something useful. Of course, they're also related, because if you have the ability to create a network of quantum computers, you can use that to build a more powerful quantum computers out of the smaller ones. So this idea is not new. This is also how normal supercomputers are built, by connecting together lots of smaller computers.
And do we know anything? You talked about distance being a question, how far apart these entangled particles can be. Do we know the answer to that? Because the quantum theory, as it is written at the moment, or at least what I learned at university, is that once they're entangled, they could be anywhere. Do we know in practice how far apart they can be?
So in principle, like if quantum mechanics describes the world, then they can be arbitrarily far apart. But of course, I think in science one should also always accept the fact that before we did it.
Yes. We need to check that first. Because of course this was part of Einstein's problem with it, that in theory then information could travel faster than the speed of light, and he didn't like that, I guess.
So entanglement does not, I want to emphasize that, allow you to communicate faster than the speed of light. It allows you to coordinate faster than the speed of light, but not to communicate faster than the speed of light. So they are two different things, right? If you can communicate, you can in particular coordinate. But to coordinate, you don't necessarily need to actually communicate.
I will be thinking about that for a while. Okay. So let's get on to the sort of physical, what this looks like in the world. We saw on the video there that there's this very small device that you could carry around. How, in order to do these very clever things, how much, what do you need to build in the real world to actually make it happen?
So the box that we just saw is really only one part of the equation here, right? Because what this box, the system that we built allows us to do is to program this without knowing any quantum physics and to run applications on the network. But to make the network itself, you need very large, complicated devices. You need something where basically the quantum information lives, so a physical device, where indeed kind of the effects of quantum mechanics can be observed. This physically means that we didn't really see it on the video, but there's a chip, a quantum chip. The one that is in Delft is made from diamond material, and in this diamond materials there are quantum bits. So now you need all kinds of things around there to actually perform operations on these quantum bits, because you don't want them to be trapped in this chip, but you want them to connect to other chips far away, right? So you need lasers and microwave pulse generators. It's complex to build these devices.
And so are we talking, a room or something the size of this hall? Or, is this something you can fit in a normal laboratory, for example?
Yeah, so like our ambition is that this technology does not remain in the lab. So what we just saw is a lab. But we're actually working actively towards to integrate that technology into a normal, it's called rack-mounted, so like what you normally see in a data center, right? Because in the way that you see it in the laboratory, this technology, I mean, it's a lab experiment, but it's not yet technology that can be reliably used over long periods of time. So for us, it's very important actually that this technology does not remain, say, on a table, on a lab, but that it is integrated into racks where they can live in, say, normal conditions in this room, for example.
So what do you think the future looks like on that? Because obviously a big question for society is, will this remain a specialized piece of technology and you have to be a big company or you have to be very rich to use it? Or do you really think that this could be part of everybody's lives? I mean, will it be cheap enough and easy enough to build that this could be in every household? Or, you know, how do you get it to everyone? I guess that's the question I'm asking.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, before we get it to everybody, like it will be quite a long journey. But honestly, this is what really drives me. I like the idea that everybody could make use of this technology eventually. And I think there's several things that are important to get there. One of them, of course, is the development of the technology itself, right? It has to work, and eventually it should also become cheaper, right? And I think there, the first users are not people at home. But I think it's extremely important to give access to this technology as early as possible. If you look actually at the conventional internet technology, most of the applications have not been developed by scientists, right? But they've been developed by people who had access to the technology and who used it. I mean, people have proposed to use entanglement even for cheating at online games, which is kind of a creative idea, but you need access to make that happen. Right. So we're also actively pursuing with the Quantum Internet Alliance the creation of an open access infrastructure where you cannot have it at home yet, but at least you can get access to this technology to program it and to write your own ideas.
So there's some central facility where the hardware sits, but then individuals can kind of call in and use something like that, where there's something central that people can access, or is it more?
Yeah. So in the near-term future, indeed, we envision it to consist of a number of different facilities for different use cases that people can access from remote.
So we heard a little bit earlier about the applications of this, the things that a quantum network could allow that do not happen now. What, for you, are the most important things that a quantum network could do that would change our world in a beneficial way?
Yeah. So quantum networks are quite famous for security, so you saw it in the video, right? And I think one of the reasons is because at short distances you can already use that technology, right? But honestly, what I'm most excited about is the range of possible applications. So we are transmitting here a completely new type of information. And to be honest, I'm most excited about, I don't want to call it the other applications, but actually also things that go beyond security or secure
like what? Give us some examples.
We already talked about coordination, so let me start with this. So I like a lot the idea that one can use these correlations or the spooky action as a distance, actually, at Einstein, to already do something useful, to think about how we can distribute videos, for example, more efficiently, so more people can watch videos. I like the idea that one can also use these technologies to do completely different things. Like people have proposed to create entanglement between telescopes to get a better image of the sky. So we know lots of kind of areas of applications.
Right. I can see this is something that, we heard you worked as an ethical hacker for a while, and the job of a hacker, I guess, is to think of try and exploit a system, right? To poke a system and see where you can find ways in, things that other people have looked at. And it's maybe a similar mentality, except the other way around, that you've got an idea and now it's a case of pushing it. What can it do? It seems that you really enjoy that challenge. Yeah.
So I know that hacking is indeed also usually considered in the context of security, right? But in a way, let me say on the conceptual level, hacking is actually quite closely related to science. It's to go at the boundary of what is possible, right? To explore without, considerations of what really is the limit. And I would argue actually that hacking is science in a rather pure form.
With a direct application.
Where the goal is to explore, right? What is really ultimately possible. So I think in that sense, what I do maybe in quantum technology is quite similar, right?
So you're just hacking the quantum world, basically.
So I'm interested in going to the limit of what communication technology can accomplish. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, let's talk a little bit about the European context here. So we have heard that you're director of the European Quantum Internet Alliance. How important has Europe been for you in leading this quantum technology project?
So I would like to emphasize, and it has been said before, that it's, I think, an illusion for any European member state to think they can do it alone. So if you look at the Quantum Internet Alliance, building a network is an extremely complex endeavor. And in fact, the plan that we have for the prototype network, there is no member state where it could be realized by itself.
Right.
So it really has to come all together, on a technological level, but also on a European level, in fact, to make that happen. So on a technological level, I think it's very important, because to create that technology, all different aspects need to come together. But I think to take that step further from technology, like something that has been built for the first time in the lab, to actually usable technology, right? Like a commercially available technology in a new market, that also can only be accomplished at the European scale.
Because it's such a big task. And how, you've worked in America, you've worked in Singapore, I think, you came back to Europe. Why did you choose to come back to Europe?
Well, I am European, this is my home. So I enjoyed seeing other things, and it has been, I think, also enriching to see other places, right? I think if you spend some time in US, you come to appreciate the value of ambition.
Right.
And I think if you spend some time in Asia, you understand that there's limits to what can be achieved by an individual.
Individuals by themselves, So Europe's somewhere happily in the middle. And when it comes to technologies like quantum networks, what's needed in order? I mean, you paint a picture of the future where this could be accessible and it's doing all these jobs. What are the obstacles to reaching that future? What needs to happen in order to have a good future for quantum technologies?
Yeah. So let me maybe start closer to the technology and then maybe go a little bit further to an ecosystem, actually. So if we start at the technological level, so we're building this technology now in the lab, right? That's great. Right. But in order to actually make it usable, we need to go out of the lab. So we have this plan to build this prototype network. That is in the lab, but for us it's critically important to deploy outside as soon as possible. To gain also that experience for when the technology goes outside, to engage with early proof of concept use cases with early adopters, to get feedback actually. So there's many technological aspects to this, right, that are very important. Where we think that beyond the prototype network that we built, we would like to work really towards a European quantum internet backbone. So let's think a little bit about what else is needed, apart from, say, making the technology and some early adopters use it, and eventually there's commercial pilots, and that's of course great, right?
Right.
But one can think a little bit about, let's suppose that all of this is successful, we deploy the technology in the field, there's early adopter proof of concept, there's even commercial pilots. What then? So how do we scale this technology, meaning that not just on a technological level, but what is needed to actually make many of these, right? To go to industrialization. And there, in fact, this cannot be achieved, say, by us in technology itself, right? But I think it really requires a European effort. So I'm talking here about manufacturing capabilities, right, that can ever actually scale this technology. I'm talking here about ecosystem development. If, for example, if you do a very simple extrapolation is how many people are needed at what point in time, in our ambition, you will quickly discover that we don't have enough of them. So, so workforce development is super important. I already mentioned the open access facilities, but a broad ecosystem development is, I think, important, not just to make the technology, but also to retain the technology. So, because, say, if we're successful in deploying it, why should it stay in Europe, right? So first we have to make it in Europe, great, but then we have to consider how does it stay in Europe. And I think for this, like a strong ecosystem that, creates value in being in Europe, and then creates value not just for a few companies that, say, produce quantum network technology, but that do everything that is needed to make network technology successful is very important. And for this reason, we believe, again, in these open access facilities that allow broad development also by people who cannot afford or don't have access to the technology, or companies. Yeah.
Right. Lots of work to do. Okay, so we have heard about an amazing technology. We've heard about what we need to make it happen. What sort of times? I know this is an impossible question, right? But I ask it every year anyway because we're all interested in the answer. How far ahead in the future are we talking? When you said that some of this is available at the moment, but when will this start to be something that a normal business might use, or a normal citizen? How quickly do you think we're going to scale this up?
So I think I already mentioned that there's these two directions, right? So distance and functionality. So I guess it's also been mentioned in the video, if you want to use only secure communication and you're happy with 100 kilometers, you can already buy that now, right? So in that sense, it's a bit more like a gradual development, right? Where distances should become longer. So the prototype network that we envision by 2030 has 500 kilometers. And to do things that are more complex than secure communication. There are some choices in this development going on here, like that I think and for this reason, it's also important to deploy as early as possible and to go to proof of concepts. Ultimately, of course, you can say we'll have very long distances, thousands of kilometers, and we'll have all the functionality that it can deliver. But what is more important after, say, 5 years, I think should be reflected also. Where is the most important near-term market in this technology, right? Is the distance the most important thing, or more functionality?
So we have to choose. And that's partly, it's also, of course, a technological decision, but also it's a society decision. I guess what benefits society? What does society need and want? Okay, so we're almost at the end of our time, but just before we finish this part of the conversation, what's the thing that you're most excited about? Looking forward, you've got some prize money you can do exciting things with. You've got a research group. What's the thing you're most excited about that's coming in the future?
On what time scale?
Fair enough.
Yeah. So quite honestly, what I would be super excited about, even though it is very far in the future, if there is a first device that allows someone at home to connect to such a network.
Right.
Even just in a trial basis.
Yes.
So that would be, for me, I think, the most exciting thing.
Well, that is a wonderful thing to look forward to. Stephanie Wehner, thank you so much for talking to me. Thank you. Please, take a seat now. So...
Alles gut, Sarah? Ich habe Zwillinge, die sind nicht so
Some wonderful ideas there. And now I would like to invite Patrick Kramer, who's the chair of the trustee committee, to join me on stage. Please welcome Patrick. Thank you. So you are the chair of the Körber Prize Trustee Committee. So you've been closely involved in this decision all the way along, all the way through the process. What was it that for the committee and for you made this work stand out?
I think we just saw it. It's excellence, scientific excellence. And people try to measure excellence, right? You can look at citations or reputation, you can make surveys. But in the end, you have to spot it. You know it's excellence once you see it. And this was the case here. And so how can we grasp it? I think if you imagine you have here somebody who bridges between two disciplines. So you have theoretical physics, fundamental quantum physics, and you have computing, computer science, informatics. And Stephanie Wehner, was able with her team to bridge between the two. This is, first of all, an excellent achievement. But second, there's a breakthrough, a pioneering achievement. That's the operating system. You know, you have the idea, doesn't matter which device I have here, I make it accessible. I can connect it. I can form a network. And this was only possible by bridging between the two disciplines, and that makes it an excellent achievement. And maybe a final thing, a third thing, it's of course that she's a wonderful scientist in the sense that she's a great citizen for the community. You could hear it, her dedication. Think about the training of the young people. If you come to a lab like the one that Stephanie is heading as a PhD student, when you leave after a couple of years, not only did you learn new skills, I mean, you have the spirit. You know, are not afraid to do something big, and I think that is also very important.
And of course, this is a European Science Prize, and we heard that developing this technology will require a collaboration the size of a continent. Why do you think that kind of cross-border collaboration is so important if Europe is to get ahead and stay ahead in science and technology?
I mean, the breakthroughs will always be done by individual people, by individual laboratories, by individual teams, but they happen in a context. And for that context, you need to have a critical mass. And I think we can only achieve that mass within the European research area. And that is actually different from just the EU. It also includes the UK, where we have very strong science. It includes Switzerland, and in my opinion, it includes also Israel. And together, this European research area is so strong that we can rival the US or China, Asia. But individual countries, even the larger countries, will be increasingly unable to do so.
And just finally, you know, this is a science prize. The Körber Prize was established to strengthen European science and innovation. And of course, there are more of these prizes around the world. But how important do you think it is that there are celebrations like this, that, you know, all this effort of having committees, of doing the searching, of finding winners? Why is that so important in today's scientific landscape?
I think it's more than important, it's essential. I mean, in science, we have what we call the deletion test. What would happen if you take it out? What about the visibility of quantum science? I mean, this is a field which is difficult to understand for people. I mean, entanglement for me is still, I mean, my response would be what Einstein said, this is spooky, I cannot believe that. How is it possible? So it's very difficult, but at the same time, people need to know about it, and people need to appreciate, even if they don't understand the details, it's not needed. We don't understand the details of, I don't understand the details of how my phone works. So we live with these things that we don't understand, but to generate the visibility and the openness in the society, there's a new technology coming. It will be safer, more secure, cheaper, it will cost less energy, it will even be good to fight climate change, to work on a quantum computer. So all these things, you know, to communicate them, to make them visible, we need something like the Körber Prize, and we need what the foundations do. Can I add one more thing? Another field is artificial intelligence. It's going to revolutionize the way. It will be everywhere. Machine learning will be everywhere. In the household, how we train people, how we teach people. This is all about machine learning. It will be, you know, the new industry. Maybe like electricity or the internet, it's a big change. And if I look just, you know, at the projects within the Max Planck Society with our 84 institutes, we have about, over the last 2 years, about a dozen new projects in artificial intelligence. But when I then look, how are they financed? I don't think there's a single one which is just taxpayer money. There's a lot of different foundations contributing to different projects in different sites. So without this philanthropic money, we would lose out on such key disciplines because the taxpayer, there's a limit to what the taxpayer can do. And often it's not the pure scale of the money, it's also things like visibility or to enable something that you cannot do with taxpayer money. So it's not just important, I think it's really essential to have such foundations.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Please join me in thanking Patrick Kramer for his comments. Okay. So now it's time for the big moment, for the presentation of the prize certificate. And so I would like to invite Stefanie Wehner and Thomas Paulsen on stage so that Stefanie can receive her award. Thank you.
Ich lese aus der Urkunde, die Körber-Stiftung vergibt auf Grundlage des Vorschlags
Now, in accordance with the proposal of the appointed Board of Trustees, the Körber-Stiftung awards the Körber European Science Prize 2025 to Stefanie Wehner, Delft University of Technology, Netherlands. Stefanie Wehner receives the Körber European Science Prize 2025 for her pioneering contributions to the quantum internet, by leading the creation of the first complete system architecture for quantum networks, including QNode OS, the world's first operating system for quantum networks. She has laid the foundation for distributed quantum computing, enabling applications far beyond the limits of today's internet. Her work marks the beginning of a new era in quantum communication, making quantum networks programmable, scalable, and ready for real-world applications.
Es gibt auch noch eine englische Version. In accordance with the proposal of the appointed Board of Trustees, the Körber-Stiftung awards the Körber European Science Prize 2025 to Stefanie Wehner, Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands. Stefanie Wehner receives the Körber European Science Prize 2025 for her pioneering contributions to the quantum internet. By leading the creation of the first complete system architecture for quantum networks, including QNode OS, the world's first operating system for quantum networks, she has laid the foundation for distributed quantum computing, enabling applications far beyond the limits of today's internet. Her work marks the beginning of a new era in quantum communication, making quantum networks programmable, scalable, and ready for real-world applications. All the best. Thank you so much. Many congratulations to Stefanie Wehner.
Thank you.
Very good.
We are going to finish the ceremony today with some more music, and this time Leonard Toschew and Gabriel Hussam will play Alt Wiener Tanzweise No. 3, Schön Rosmarin by Fritz Kreisler. For really providing a lovely atmosphere to finish off the ceremony. So thank you so much to all of you here for joining in this celebration. I hope that we're leaving you with hope for the future, with some confidence, with optimism, with new appreciation for science, and probably some really sort of uncomfortable, sort of weird ideas knocking around your head about the quantum world. But at least you know that we can make this part of a positive future for Europe, for European science, and for European citizens. So thank you also to everybody who has joined us on the live stream. We are so happy that we can share this ceremony beyond these wonderful walls and share it out with the world. So the formal part of this ceremony is now over, but of course it's time to celebrate with a drink and some conversation. And so everyone here is very welcome to the reception, which will happen just on the other side immediately after this. So you can go through these doors right here and meet some of the other wonderful people in the room here. But before you go, please join me for one last round of applause to celebrate European science, this wonderful event, and of course, our new Körber European Science Prize winner, Stefanie Wehner.